You should have made sure I was really dead.
Who are you?
Look closely. I'm your biggest mistake.
Another doctor, another disappointment.
She's different, boss.
They always say that until they fail.
I'm not here to impress you,
Then why are you here?
to fix what everyone else couldn't.
Do you even know who I am?
Yes, and I still walked in.
People fear me.
People misunderstand you.
You think I need understanding?
No, I think you need honesty.
Rain hammered the rooftop like gunfire. The man who once ruled the city without sight now knelt, breathing hard, blood mixing with water at his knees. His hands trembled, not from weakness, but from something far worse. Fear. A woman stood in front of him, dressed in black, face hidden behind a mask. The gun in her hand didn't shake. You should have made sure I was really dead, she said. His eyes widened. Who are you? She stepped closer. Slow. Certain. You already know. He tried to stand, but pain shot through his side. No, that's not possible. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Then, cut to silence. Months earlier, Kong Jae-min sat in complete darkness, fingers tapping slowly against the armrest of his chair. The room was quiet, but the tension in the air could choke a man. Another doctor, he asked, voice low. Yes, boss, one of his men replied. From Africa. They say she's different. He scoffed. They all say that. She insisted on meeting you before agreeing. A pause. Then he leaned back slightly. Bring her in. The door opened. Soft footsteps. No hesitation. No fear. Dr. Amara Okoye, she said calmly. I hear you're difficult. A few of the men shifted uncomfortably. Jamin tilted his head slightly. And I hear you're bold. I don't waste time pretending, she replied. He smiled faintly. Good. Then let's not pretend. You know who I am. Yes. And you still came. Yes. Why? A small pause. Because blindness doesn't make you dangerous, she said. Your choices do. Silence. The room froze. One of the guards stepped forward. Watch your... Stop, Jamin said quietly. The guard stepped back immediately. Jamin leaned forward slightly. Most people are afraid of me. Amara didn't move. Most people haven't seen what I've seen. And what have you seen? She folded her arms. Men worse than you, who still chose to change. He chuckled. Low. Dangerous. You think I want to change? I think you don't know you can. That hit something. Something buried deep. He leaned back again. You talk too much. And you hide too much. Another pause. Then, fine, he said. You have the job. Days passed. Treatment began. At first, he resisted everything. Don't touch me. Stay still. I said don't. I'm trying to help you, she snapped one day. He froze. No one spoke to him like that. You think I'm afraid of you, she continued. I've worked in places where people die because no one is brave enough to act. I won't be that person here. He was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, you're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, she said. Something shifted. Slowly, he started listening. Turn your head. He did. Focus on the light. He tried. Good. Days turned into weeks. One evening, the power went out. Darkness filled the room again. Jamin exhaled slowly. Funny. What? She asked. This is where I'm strongest. She sat across from him. No. This is where you're used to surviving. He tilted his head. What's the difference? She leaned forward slightly. Surviving means you're still afraid. Strength means you're not. He let out a quiet laugh. You think I'm afraid? I think you're terrified, she said softly. Silence. Heavy. Real. Of what? He asked. Of losing control. He didn't answer. Because she was right. The surgery day came. Tension filled every second. Are you ready? She asked. No, he replied. Good, she said. That means you understand the risk. He smirked faintly. If I don't wake up, you will. And if I do? She looked at him. Really looked at him. Then you choose who you become next. Hours passed. Silence. Machines. Focus. Then, a breath. A flicker. Light. Jamin's fingers twitched. His eyes opened slowly. Blurred shapes. Movement. Then, her face. Clear. For the first time. He stared. Longer than expected. "You're real," he whispered. She smiled slightly. "Last time I checked." He blinked, adjusting. "You're not what I imagined." "Is that good or bad?" He studied her. "Dangerous." She raised an eyebrow. "I'll take that as a compliment." But something changed. Not immediately, but subtly. His gaze hardened. His tone shifted. His world came rushing back. Power. Control. Fear. His advisors wasted no time. "She knows too much. She saw you weak. She cannot live." He stood by the window, looking at the city. For the first time in years. Lights. Movement. Power. "Boss," one of them pressed. "You have to decide." A long silence. Then, "Do it." No emotion. No hesitation. That night, Amara was taken. She didn't fight. Didn't scream. Just walked. Calm. Almost expecting it. One of the men looked uneasy. "Any last words?" She looked straight ahead. "Yes." He hesitated. "What?" "You're making a mistake." The gun was raised. A shot rang out. Silence. If you're already feeling the tension building, go ahead and hit that like button and tell me in the comments right now, would you trust him after this? Because what happens next changes everything. Months later, everything began to fall apart. And Kong Jae-min had no idea why. But someone was watching. And they weren't done yet. The city no longer felt like his. Kong Jae-min stood in the center of his office, staring through glass walls at Seoul's endless lights. Months ago, those lights felt like they belonged to him. Every deal, every shadow, every whisper. Now, they flickered like signals he couldn't decode. "Report," he said coldly. One of his top men stepped forward, voice tight. "We lost another shipment." Jaemin didn't turn. "That makes 4. "Yes." "Money?" "Gone." "All of it." A pause. "Yes." Jaemin's jaw tightened. "And you're telling me you have no leads?" "We're trying." "Trying," he snapped, spinning around. "Do you think I built this empire by trying?" Silence dropped like a blade. "No, boss." "Then stop trying. Start fixing it." The man bowed slightly. "Yes, boss." But as the room emptied, something lingered. A feeling. Not anger. Not confusion. Recognition. Someone knew him. Not just his operations, but his patterns. His habits. His blind spots. And that thought refused to leave. Later that night, he sat alone, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. The door creaked open slightly. "Boss," another voice called. "We found something." Jaemin didn't move. "Say it." "There's a name," being whispered. He slowly lifted his gaze. "What name?" The man hesitated. "No one knows her real identity." "Then what do they call her?" Another pause. "The ghost." Jaemin's grip tightened around the glass. "Why?" "They say she appears where deals collapse, where money disappears, where men betray us." A slow exhale. "And no one has seen her face?" "No." A faint smile crept onto his lips. "Then she's smart." "Yes, boss." He stood up slowly. "Find her." "We're trying." He turned sharply. "Don't say that word again." The man swallowed. "Yes, boss." "Find her," Jaemin repeated, voice lower now. "Because whoever she is, she's not just attacking my empire." He stepped closer. "She's playing with me." And somewhere deep inside, that unsettled him more than anything. Days passed. Then weeks. The damage spread. Allies began pulling away. Deals fell through at the last second. Information leaked before meetings even happened. One evening, a senior lieutenant burst into the room, breathing hard. "Boss, we've been compromised again." Jaemin didn't even look up. "Where?" "The docks." The police were waiting. A slow pause. "Who tipped them off?" "We don't know." "Of course you don't," he muttered. The man hesitated. "Boss, people are starting to talk." Jaemin finally looked at him. "About what?" "About her." The room went cold. "They're saying she's unstoppable." "Unstoppable." Jaemin repeated quietly. "Yes." That no matter what we do, she's already ahead. A long silence followed. Then Jaemin stepped closer. You believe that? The man froze. No, boss. Because I don't, Jaemin said calmly. No one is unstoppable. He leaned in slightly. Everyone bleeds. The man nodded quickly. Yes, boss. Good, Jaemin said. Then find out where she bleeds. That night, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. Not the ghost. Not the enemy. Amara. Her voice. Her calm. Her last words. You're making a mistake. He sat up suddenly, breathing heavier than usual. No, he muttered to himself. She's dead. He stood, pacing slowly. She's dead. But the thought didn't settle. Because something didn't feel right. Something didn't add up. The next morning, bring me the report from that night, he ordered. One of his men blinked. Which night, boss? Jaemin's eyes darkened. The night she died. The man stiffened. Yes, boss. Minutes later, a file was placed in front of him. Jaemin opened it slowly. Time of execution. Location. Confirmation of death. Everything looked clean. Too clean. His fingers tapped the page. Who handled this? He asked. Han Suk, the man replied. Bring him. Moments later, Han Suk stood in front of him, trying to remain steady. You handled the execution, Jaemin said. Yes, boss. Walk me through it. Han nodded quickly. We took her to the site. No resistance. She didn't fight. Jaemin's eyes narrowed slightly. Go on. I asked if she had last words. She said we were making a mistake. Jaemin's fingers tightened slightly. And then, I shot her. Where? Chest. Point blank. Yes. And you checked the body? A pause. Yes. Jaemin's gaze sharpened. You're hesitating. Han swallowed. No, boss. Say it again, Jaemin said quietly. I checked the body. Another silence. Then Jaemin stood up slowly, walked around him, stopped right behind him. And you're sure she was dead? Han's voice dropped. Yes. Jaemin leaned closer. Because if you're wrong. A pause. Then I made a mistake. Han didn't respond. Couldn't. Jaemin stepped back. Leave. Han walked out quickly, tension heavy in every step. But Jaemin didn't sit. Didn't relax. Didn't move. Because for the first time, doubt had entered his world. And doubt was dangerous. That evening, a message arrived. No sender. No trace. Just a single line. You see everything now, except the truth. Jaemin stared at the screen. His heart didn't race. But something deeper shifted. Trace it, he ordered immediately. We're trying. He looked up sharply. The man stopped mid-sentence. Find it, Jaemin said coldly. Yes, boss. Hours passed. Nothing. No trace. No origin. Just silence. Until another message. You should have listened. Jaemin's hand clenched. Impossible, he whispered. But deep down, he already knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. This was personal. Very personal. If you're starting to suspect who's really behind all this, pause right here and drop your guess in the comments. Because the truth? It's closer than he thinks. And far more dangerous. That same night, a call came in. Urgent. Boss, his man said, voice shaking. There's been another attack. Where? Your private warehouse. Jaemin froze. Only a handful of people knew about that location. How bad? Everything's gone. A long silence. Then, a slow, controlled breath. Get the car ready, Jaemin said. Yes, boss. As he stepped out into the night, rain beginning to fall again. He felt it. Not fear. Not yet. But something close. Because whoever was behind this wasn't just attacking his empire anymore. They were inside it. And they weren't stopping. Not until everything collapsed. Rain soaked the empty warehouse as Kong Jaemin stepped inside, his shoes echoing against the hollow concrete. The smell hit him first, burnt metal, smoke, and something else. Absence. Everything was gone. Crates. Weapons. Records. Clean. Too clean. He walked slowly, scanning every corner, every shadow. This was done by someone who knew exactly what to take, he said quietly. Yes, boss, one of his men replied. No mistakes. No leftovers. Jamin crouched slightly, running his fingers across the floor. No panic marks. No rushed movement. Just precision. He stood up. She was here. The men exchanged glances. Boss, we still don't know if it's a she. It is, Jamin cut in sharply. Silence. He turned, eyes cold. Because this isn't destruction. A pause. This is control. He walked toward the exit slowly. Set a trap. His men stiffened. A trap. Yes, he said. We give her something she can't ignore. What kind of bait? Jamin's lips curled slightly. Me. The room went still. Boss, that's too dangerous. That's the point. No one argued again. Because when King Jamin made a decision, it was already done. Hours later, the message spread quietly through underground channels. A high-level meeting. A rare appearance. Jamin himself would be there. The perfect target. The perfect bait. Night fell. The building was surrounded, guards placed strategically, exits covered. Inside, Jamin stood alone in the center of the room. Waiting. Seconds stretched. Minutes dragged. Then, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. Gone. Darkness swallowed everything. A few guards shouted. What's happening? Then, gunshots. Quick. Precise. One after another. Bodies dropped. No chaos. No panic. Just execution. Jamin didn't move. Didn't flinch. He stood still, listening. Footsteps. Light. Controlled. Coming closer. Then, a voice. Calm. Familiar. You always preferred darkness, didn't you? His breath hitched just slightly. I knew it, he said quietly. Silence. Then the emergency lights flickered back on. And there she stood. Dressed in black. Mask covering her face. Gun steady in her hand. You're late, he said, voice steady. She tilted her head slightly. You're predictable. A faint smirk touched his lips. And you're alive. A pause. Yes. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Real. One of his remaining men tried to move. A shot rang out. He dropped instantly. She didn't even look. Send them away, she said calmly. Jamin didn't hesitate. Leave. The few remaining guards froze. Boss, leave. They obeyed. The doors closed. Now it was just the two of them. Face to face. Past and present colliding. You look different, he said. You see better now, she replied. A small silence. Then, take off the mask. She didn't move. Why? She asked. Because I want to see the face of the person who thinks they've beaten me. A soft chuckle escaped her. Still arrogant. And you're still avoiding. Another pause. Then slowly. She reached up. Removed the mask. And time stopped. Amara. Alive. But not the same. Her eyes were sharper. Colder. Stronger. Jamin stared. Longer than he should have. I saw you die, he said quietly. No, she replied. You saw what you wanted to see. He took a step closer. You planned it. Yes. From when? From the moment you stopped trusting me. His jaw tightened. So you expected me to betray you. I understood you, she corrected. Silence. Thick. Uncomfortable. You think this is justice? He asked. I think this is balance. You destroyed my empire. You built it on fear. And you think you're better? She stepped closer now. No, she said softly. I just chose differently. He let out a low laugh. You chose revenge. I chose survival. The words hit harder than anything else. A pause. Then he asked, quieter this time. Why didn't you run? I did, she said. Then why come back? She looked at him. Really looked at him. Because you wouldn't stop. Silence. Then. And because you needed to see what you created. He scoffed. I created this? Yes. She gestured around them. The lies. The fear. The betrayal. A step closer. You taught me all of it. His expression darkened. I didn't teach you anything. You taught me not to trust, she said calmly. That was enough. Another silence. Then, you could have killed me, he said. I still can. Then why haven't you? A long pause. Longer than before. Then she said quietly, because I wanted you to understand. Understand what? That power without trust is nothing. He stared at her. And you think you have power now? She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out a small device. Pressed a button. Suddenly, screens around the room flickered to life. Video feeds. Bank accounts. Transactions. All under her control. His empire. Or what was left of it. Impossible, he muttered. No, she said. I just paid attention. His fists clenched. You think this ends here? No, she replied calmly. This is where it begins. A beat. Then, he moved. Fast. Too fast. Grabbing a hidden weapon. But, she was faster. A shot rang out. The gun flew from his hand. He froze. Her weapon now aimed directly at him. Steady. Unshaken. Still predictable, she said softly. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Final. If your heart is racing right now, you already know this isn't over. Go ahead and hit subscribe because what she does next, no one sees coming. Jamin looked at her. Not with anger. Not with fear. But something else. Why didn't you stay dead? He asked quietly. She didn't hesitate. Because I wasn't done. A pause. Done with what? She stepped closer. Close enough for him to see every detail. Every change. Every truth. Becoming someone you could never control. The words cut deeper than any bullet. And for the first time, King Jamin had no response. No power. No move left. Just silence. And the realization. He was no longer the one in control. Not anymore. Rain drummed harder against the broken windows, the sound filling the silence between them. Kang Jamin didn't move. For the first time in years, there was no strategy forming in his mind, no calculated response waiting to be unleashed. Just stillness. Amara's gun remained steady, aimed directly at his chest. Her breathing was calm. Controlled. Not rushed. Not emotional. He let out a slow breath. So this is it. She didn't answer. He tilted his head slightly. All of this, just to end me? A pause. No, she said quietly. Another drop of rain hit the floor between them. This was never about ending you. Then what? He asked, his voice lower now, stripped of its usual edge. What do you want? She studied him for a moment. Not as an enemy. Not as a victim. But as a man who had finally run out of moves. I wanted you to see, she said. I see, he replied, almost immediately. You destroyed everything. She shook her head slowly. No. I showed you what you built. Silence stretched again. His jaw tightened slightly. You think this is justice? I think this is consequence. The word landed heavier than anything else she had said. He looked away for a brief second, then back at her. And after this? What happens next? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she lowered the gun slightly, but not completely. I walk away. His eyes narrowed. That's it. That's enough. A faint, bitter smile touched his lips. You came all this way, took everything, just to leave? Yes. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to, she replied. Another silence. Then, you could kill me, he said again, this time more quietly. I know. Then why won't you? A longer pause this time. The kind that felt like it carried years inside it. Because death is easy, she said finally. And you don't deserve easy. The words didn't sound like anger. They sounded like truth. He swallowed slowly. So you're just going to leave me like this? Yes. With nothing. She met his eyes. With everything you chose. That hit. Not like a bullet. Like something deeper. Something permanent. He took a slow step forward. She raised the gun again instantly. Don't, she warned. He stopped. Not out of fear. But because he understood. I trusted you, he said. Her expression didn't change. No. You needed me. That's not the same. It is for you. Another pause. Do you regret it? He asked. The question lingered in the air. Heavy. Real. Amara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she lowered the gun completely this time. I regret believing you would choose differently. His eyes flickered. Just for a second. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Silence. Rain. Distance. Everything that had once connected them, gone. You changed, he said. So did you. I became who I was. No, she replied softly. You went back to who you were. That one, he couldn't argue with. Another long pause. Then, what happens to me now, he asked. Amara looked around the room briefly. At the screens. At the empty space. At what used to be power. That depends, she said. On what? On whether you finally understand. He let out a quiet breath. Understand what? That fear built your empire, but it also destroyed it. He didn't respond. Because again, she wasn't wrong. A faint sound echoed outside. Sirens. Distant at first. Then closer. His head turned slightly. You called them. Yes. A small, humorless laugh escaped him. Of course you did. They'll be here soon. And you, he asked. I won't be. You're just going to disappear? Yes. Like nothing happened? She shook her head slightly. No. Like everything happened. Another pause. Then, you planned all of this, he said. Yes. Even this moment? She looked at him one last time. Yes. The sirens grew louder. Closer. Final. He took a slow breath, then another. You win, he said quietly. Amara didn't react. Because this was never about winning. She turned. Started walking away. Each step steady. Certain. No hesitation. No looking back. Amara. She stopped. But didn't turn. After a second, she spoke. Yes. His voice was different now. Not commanding. Not cold. Just human. If I had chosen differently. A pause. Would you have stayed? The question hung in the air. Fragile. Almost too late. Amara closed her eyes briefly. Then opened them again. You already know the answer to that. He nodded slowly. Even though she couldn't see it. Yeah, he said. She walked away. The sound of her footsteps fading into the distance. Then gone. Completely. Moments later. The doors burst open. Police flooded in. Shouting commands. Weapons raised. Kong Jaemin. Don't move. He didn't. Didn't resist. Didn't speak. He just stood there. In the middle of everything he lost. And for the first time in his life, he understood. Not power. Not control. But consequence. If you made it this far, then you already know this wasn't just a story about revenge. It was about choices. Drop a comment right now, what would you have done in his place? Months later. Far from Seoul. Far from chaos. In a quiet village clinic. Amara stood over a young patient, adjusting a bandage carefully. Does it hurt? She asked gently. The child shook his head. No. She smiled slightly. Good. That means you're healing. Outside, the sun was warm. The air calm. Nothing like the storm she left behind. Another nurse walked in. Doctor, we have another patient waiting. I'll be there, Amara replied. She removed her gloves slowly, took a breath, and stepped into the next room. No fear. No shadows. Just purpose. And as she moved forward, one thing was clear. She didn't just survive. She became something more. Something stronger. Something no one would ever control again. And somewhere, in a prison cell surrounded by silence, Kong Jaemin sat alone. Not blind. But finally able to see. Everything. Too late. If this story kept you hooked till the end, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And tell me, do you think he deserved that ending, or something worse? Because sometimes, the greatest punishment is living with what you've done.